Sudan's recalled its ambassador to Ethiopia, accusing the government there of launching drones into its capital, Khartoum. A top army general says an investigation into Monday's incident revealed that the drones were supplied by the United Arab Emirates. Brigadier General Asim Awad Abdel-Wahab also said there were evidence previous attacks all came from the Ethiopian city of Bahir Dar. In the past, the UAE has denied allegations of any involvement in the Sudan conflict.
What Ethiopia and the UAE have done is a direct aggression against Sudan and will not be met with silence. Our armed forces are fully prepared to deal with any threat in a way that preserves the dignity, sovereignty and security of the nation.
Ethiopia's Foreign Affairs Ministry has released a statement dismissing Sudan's claims as baseless. It's instead accusing officials in Khartoum of supporting what it says are mercenaries from the Tigray People's Liberation Front to fight in the conflict. Ethiopia has classified the TPLF as a terrorist organization. Ethiopia says Sudan has provided weapons and financial support to the group, and it adds that Sudan is being used as a hub for several anti-Ethiopian forces. Alan Boswell is the Horn of Africa Director of the International Crisis Group. He's joining us now from Nairobi. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Alan. Just give us your take. What's the context on this latest attack?
Well, the attack itself is not necessarily something that's new. Both sides.
Alan, good to have you back. We've got our technical problems sorted out. You were describing to us just a few moments ago your context of what's happening here. You were saying this kind of back and forth is not something new.
Yeah, but this is a worrying escalation that we are seeing between Sudan and Ethiopia. I mean, both countries, as you know, are facing massive internal challenges, and essentially both sides now see the other as supporting their armed opponents and are increasingly openly accusing them of doing so. And that obviously creates a very dangerous dynamic between the two countries and risks making their own internal challenges much worse, and also makes both of their conflicts even more regionalized.
Why do you think this is happening now?
Well, the main trigger really is just that this war in Sudan just continues to escalate with no clear off-ramp, and it is really starting to tear apart the Horn of Africa region, frankly. And you have a number of outside countries which back the Sudanese army. As you mentioned, there's ample evidence that the UAE is backing the other side of Sudan's war, the RSF, and they all have their own regional allies, and basically we're seeing a region that's getting very polarized. And you're having relations, for instance, between General Burhan, who rules Sudan, and Prime Minister Abiy, who rules Ethiopia. Previously, we did have Abiy and Burhan able to have something of a cordial relationship, if not cordial, at least working relationship, so that they could stop escalation against each other. But we've seen those sorts of relationships start to break down as this region just gets more and more divided and more dangerous.
I should point out again that the UAE has denied allegations that it's involved in the Sudan conflict. Indeed, other countries have done that as well. But you alluded to the external factors, shall we say, the external influences within Sudan that could be exacerbating the situation that is on the ground. What do you think could happen next if this situation continues to escalate?
Yeah, well, both warring parties in Sudan would have run out of munitions very early in this war if it wasn't for the backing they're getting from the outside. And the level of escalation we've seen coming from the outside regional powers on both sides of the war is unprecedented for Sudan and is dramatically changing the shape of this region. And the other major domino that many fear will fall is the ongoing escalation in Ethiopia's Tigray region, where we saw a big civil war just a few years ago. We had an escalation there today as well, and the standoff between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Now, Ethiopia sees two main regional foes in its neighborhood, Eritrea and Egypt, and both of them are backing the Sudanese army in this war. And so that makes Ethiopia feel increasingly cornered, even as from Sudan's perspective, they see Ethiopia increasingly being used to support their opponent in the war, RSF. So you can see how this is getting increasingly entangled, and there's a risk that the two situations in both countries start to become merged, and we see a much wider and messy, entangled war.
Is there any opportunity to try to de-escalate or take the heat out of this situation? And would it have to come from inside both countries themselves, or are there external forces, are there external influences that could actually try to take some of the heat out of this situation?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Sudan war itself, the outside players are now so deeply involved that some of the de-escalation needs to come from outside within the broader region. And that has been, for instance, a focus of U.S. diplomacy, but that has yet to gain traction. In terms of the relations in this escalation between Sudan and Ethiopia, the leaders, General Burhan and Prime Minister Abiy, they have the ability to de-escalate this themselves. Unfortunately, I think they might be being emboldened and encouraged on this path towards escalation by their outside backers. But they have shown in the past that when they need to, they're able to meet together and to de-escalate things. Because really, this is a situation that benefits neither if both sides get more deeply involved in the other civil war.
Alan Boswell is Horn of Africa Director at the International Crisis Group. We appreciate it, Alan. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Rob.